Cheap versus expensive drugs. How close are they in efficacy? There's often a stark dichotomy between cheap and expensive drugs. The perception is that cost correlates directly with quality and effectiveness. However, this assumption isn't always accurate. In reality, the comparison between cheap and expensive drugs is nuanced and multifaceted. While cost can be an indicator of certain factors, such as research and development expenses, production methods, brand recognition, type of formulation like tablets, capsules, or liquid, formulations designed for certain populations like children's paracetamol with added flavors, and where you purchased the drugs. Although all these factors are important, it doesn't always reflect the intrinsic efficacy of a medication. You are watching Zoom Hospital Channel, and I am Dr. Kayode. We often wonder why we should buy the same drug, with the same efficacy, approved by same government, in the same shop, at the same time, at a double price, just because the producers are different. At this point, it is logical to think that there is something wrong with a cheaper drug. But in reality, there is usually no difference in terms of the efficacy, as long as the manufacturer complied with the necessary regulations. Assessing efficacy. When comparing cheap and expensive drugs, it's essential to evaluate their efficacy based on scientific evidence rather than cost alone. Clinical trials and studies play a crucial role in determining the effectiveness of medications, irrespective of their price point. Regulatory agencies, such as the Food and Drug Administration (FDA), scrutinize drugs for safety, quality, and efficacy before approving them for market release. In many cases, generic drugs, which are usually the cheap drugs, undergo rigorous testing to demonstrate bioequivalence to their brand name counterparts. These studies confirm that the generic drug delivers the same active ingredient at the same rate and to the same extent as the brand name version. As a result, generics are considered interchangeable with their brand name counterparts in terms of efficacy and safety. I know you might be wondering how come some companies can produce cheaper than others. Here is the answer. 1. Expensive drugs often come with a hefty price tag due to the extensive research and development investments required to bring them to market. Pharmaceutical companies invest significant resources in clinical trials, regulatory approvals, and patent protections, which can drive up the cost of the final product. These expenses are then passed on to consumers through higher prices. In contrast, cheaper drugs may not have incurred the same level of research and development expenditure. Generic versions of medication, for example, are typically cheaper because they don't carry the same development costs. Instead, they leverage the research conducted by the original manufacturer once the patent protection expires. 2. Brand recognition and marketing. Brand name drugs often command higher prices due to the recognition and trust built around their name. Pharmaceutical companies invest heavily in marketing campaigns to promote their branded medications, which can contribute to higher costs. Consumers may perceive these drugs as more effective simply because they are more familiar with the brand. Generic drugs, on the other hand, may lack the same level of brand recognition and marketing. As a result, they tend to be more affordable. However, this doesn't necessarily mean they are less effective. Generics undergo rigorous testing to demonstrate bioequivalence to their brand name counterparts, ensuring comparable efficacy and safety. 3. Production methods and ingredients. Cheaper drugs, particularly generics, often employ more straightforward manufacturing processes and utilize readily available ingredients. While this may result in lower production costs, it doesn't necessarily compromise the efficacy of the medication. Conclusion. The comparison between cheap and expensive drugs is complex and multifaceted. While cost can be influenced by factors such as research and development expenses, brand recognition, and production methods, it doesn't necessarily reflect the intrinsic efficacy of a medication. Cheaper drugs, particularly generics, often provide comparable efficacy and safety to their more expensive counterparts, thanks to rigorous testing and regulatory oversight by the government drug regulatory agencies. Ultimately, the choice between cheap and expensive drugs should be based on factors such as efficacy, safety, and affordability. Consulting with a healthcare professional can help individuals make informed decisions tailored to their specific needs and circumstances. Kindly subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so that you can be notified anytime we release a new video with a life-saving medical innovation. You can contact us via the link in the description below for any medical inquiry.